Okay, welcome. This is the third episode of the Freeze team doing some Tangram today. We were working on console application last week, and I have done very little since then. So we're not going to be much further along than where we ended. I would like to today to fix the bug that we found last week with the console template, and that was being able to return a response. Not that we need it from the console, because the console version would just get console out. But we don't want to. I don't want to work at it that way, because I want to. Eventually, the goal is to move this to a web application. So with a web application, I'm going to need responses back from an API for sure. So anyway, I'm going to take a quick look at that today and see if we can't figure out. It's going to be activator create instance kind of thing. And I've done that before in Blazor State, my open source library. So we're going to look at some of that code and see if we can't figure out why that isn't working. So we should put in here working on tangram.io console application. I have created a repository now for this on GitHub. So I will add that to the chat window as well, and that's going to be located here. So throw that in the chat. That should scroll across the screen as well on YouTube when that shows up. All right, so that's the repo, and I've checked it in except for the last few changes that I'm working on right now. So, and today we're not going to leave the screen on myself. I'm going to switch over to the console or the screen display and try to figure out what's going on. So the create instance problem is right here. We showed last week, we kind of just worked around it and just said, okay, we'll ignore it and we'll always cast a request. So I could cast this to whatever I wanted, but I don't know what I need to cast it to. Start over. So with the command vault unseal response there, nope, the command vault unseal command. Last week we worked around it where it didn't return anything, it was just generic, but we really want it to return some sort of response, and I still want to be able to make a command out of this. The response is going to come back. So when we parse through these, and I'm not sure if I have the generics picked up in there. Like I said, I haven't touched this since last week, except for like 5 minutes. I put this back to where we could duplicate the error. This is the response we're expecting back, which is trivial. So this generic command handler creates an instance here. And the problem is this type is correct, but we don't know the generic parameter for this. So I've done some quick lookup inside of PowerGrep here through my Blazor State application, which also has an instance of the tools in here. But let's go look at how, so this is the tools, so this is a similar, this is the way it works, right? If I do a cast it to iRequest, which we don't, but it's actually an iRequest of a type that we're trying to get to function. So this is the old way. I want to look at the way I do it in this store to see if I also create any generic attributes. This I cast as an iState. Oh, that's I do a trick in Blazor State that I implement iState and iState of. So I wonder if that trick would work here. Let's see. Let's just try that real quick just for fun. Let's see if I implemented that and iRequest. We're running, so let's stop that. If I implement that and iRequest, and then we come back over here and say, let's cast this to iRequest. now that it implements it, it should be able to do it. And it's just a marker interface. It's going to be kind of be curious. This could be a var now since it's a parent. Shouldn't complain. All right, so now I won't have to go through this mess. And this should claim to send, but I'm curious if it's going to actually work. So let's run it. What we did here is on that command, I implement the real thing that's going to give me back. And then I also implement the request. So this should make it work. I'm just curious. I don't know how Mediator actually is looking for the what thing to instantiate. So my handler only handles this guy. Let's just run it and see, right? Because if this works, it's a simple workaround. It's redundant. I don't like it, but maybe they're better, something better, but at least it gets past this piece. So continue from here. That's the very beginning. And now we're in this guy. Let's see. So here's a request of object. It says the vault key is null, so it still has the information there. This will go through and set that property. So now a request should have the vault key set to whatever we pass in. Oh, and let me go over that. When we executed this in the debug mode, these are the application, or these are the application arguments that passed in. Vault unseal command minus vault ASDF, whatever. It's just some stuff there to see if we can get this return value to work, right? Okay, so now if we send this command, hopefully it'll show up in our vault unseal command handler here. So let's press go. And oh, it's going to actually show up in our validator first. So it does seem to be doing that correctly. And that should throw an exception. And it does. So now we're going to get an exception. It should say validation failed. Validation key must be 66 characters in length. You returned 8 characters. All right, so that's good to know. All right, so remember we're trying to create a mediator-based non-input loop version of the Tangram console app. What I need to do is I need to get the Tangram console app running in its own tab here. So let's create a new tab because we can have some samples keys of the one that's actually working. Let's see, where is it? Change directory to GitHub and Tangram, and change directory to Cipher Fork. I think is the one that I was playing with last week. And we ran this bad boy, didn't we? So we could get keys and so forth. We did. How did we run this thing? Whew, man, I got to do a better job taking some notes. So maybe we've already got this running. Change directory to the bin, ls change directory to release. It's a NetCore app. Let's see, what do we have in here? This looks like it. Going to pull up the Tangram documentation on the other screen here real quick. We're going to go to the GitHub page. I'm going to throw that in the chat also. So there's the Tangram project over there. And the actual, or that's their whole repo. This is the one that we want here. This is the Cipher wallet. And I'm going through the documentation real quick. Okay, so it was just the cipher DLL. So .NET cipher cipher.dll should fire up this thing. Interestingly enough, it looks like it's updating. Oh, I did do an update, by the way, of this fork. But all we care about is one of these keys at the moment. So back over here, if we change this now to one of these long keys, then hit enter. Oh, that's not what we want. We want to put that inside our debugger. Sorry. So over here, enter debugging, properties. Let's see, did that message come up on the console app? I don't know that we've finished yet. All right, let's continue to run with the command parameters that we have in there currently to see that the console app fails. It'll write the message, should write the message that you need to have the right length to the console there, and it also should and here's the console output. Vault key must be 66 characters in length. You entered 8 characters. Validation failed. All right, so we don't need to do the this message here, right? Because that should already be taken care of for us. So we're going to run again. It's complaining there. Let's go back and fix that. I'm throwing an exception. All I care about, I'm not doing anything with it, so you don't need to capture the variable. All right, so stop. Hopefully today, the microphone feedback, I put in a noise filter. It's my air conditioner, which here in Thailand is a requirement, so I'm not going to turn it off to do the show, or I'll be sweating like a pig. So I hope the filter now makes the noisy much less noisy. All right, so now I'm going to run through here again, and that's going to raise an exception. That's going to get caught. It's going to return that, and done. Let's see what the console look like. There you go. Vault key must be 66 characters length. You entered 8 characters. And this is just saying it exited with code 1, which is what we want. And this is just telling us to, this is from Visual Studio saying, hey, we're going to close this thing if you click a button. Boom, like that. Okay, so now we want to go in and set the properties to give it a legitimate string, which actually should get us to the handler in this case. So save that, close that, and run. Now the question is it will validate, will it get to the handler properly? And I'm hopeful that it will. It didn't. It did not. And always gets exited with code 1. So now, sadly, let's go back. If I control Z this guy, it'll put that console message back in there. And we can break and see what is its problem. Probably going to say it can't find the handler because I think it's looking for it's not looking for the generic argument. Let's see, what does E say? Handler was not found for your request of type. Handler was not found. Vault unseal command mediator. See, notice the mediator R unit. So the handler is registered as handling this and returning the response, which is what we want. But because we cast it as a request as opposed to a request of this, then it can't find it. So back to the drawing board with that, right? So this here really needs to know the proper type of what the response is going to be. So that little trick doesn't work so well. That's going to get rather complicated, and it's going to take me a minute or two to figure out, because we're talking about generics, and then I have to add that generic argument. Let's look again at Power Grep here and see what was going on in this other one right here. See, create generic argument. Build command for request. Create generic argument. This is non-trivial. All right, so let's go build command for request. This is inside there. Let's go look for that. Time Warp command line builder, build command for request. And here it is. Okay, so create generic argument. Oh, this is different. So this is the argument for that. But I wonder if that same type of logic, argument type equals that, and then you say make generic type a property type, create instance of generic argument type as argument. Okay, so you see what we've done here is you say, given this type of argument some generic, then you say make the generic, that's this type, and then you say make the generic argument type, which is passing in what would go inside of here, right? And that goes there. So that's similar to what we want to do inside the other. And then you say activator.create instance generic argument type. Now the question would be, so I think that code right there is pretty much what we want to do in here. So question is, how do we get this property type that we want? So we're going to come in here. How do we know the return type of this bad boy? So we get this type here. And maybe we actually have it right on that. Maybe it's actually on that. Where is that defined? F12. Okay, so that's the type of this. All right, so if that's the case, as opposed to casting this to this, we actually have a type. All right, so we should be able to say type dot, I think it is generic, right? Is generic type. So if type is generic type, do something else. Say it's not generic. Do that. So if it is generic, then how do I get the get generic type definition? Returns a type object that represents a generic type definition. Whatever that thing is, looks like it should be about the right thing, right? Var x for lack of name right at the moment. And then what if I just said don't cast it as anything? var request equals activator.create instance of type X. Wonder what that does. Let's put a breakpoint here. Well, we have a breakpoint already, so let's stop. And let's see if we can compile. So this is probably, if you're an amateur, or not an amateur, if you're a beginner, then this is going to be a little bit complicated because we're looking at generics here, and we're actually doing runtime type information. We're doing activator create instance, which is how you create basically by name as opposed to like a new. This is by name. This is a reflective way of creating a class of this type. So you can type can be a parameter. Normally you say new the actual type. So this is a little, this is definitely not CS, this is not C# 101 for sure. But bear with me here for a minute because the rest of the stuff, if we get this to work, turns back into C# 101. And we want to play with that. But I'd like to get this working first. So if we run right now, did it compile? Nope. What the heck is this all about? Oh, I just threw in this stuff right here. This should all been under comments. I was just trying to get the concept from that other section of code. And now we've got var request here is out of scope with this guy. What is this thing? Let's continue to use that iRequest just to make it pass. And then we don't need the var, and then it won't be out of scope. And then this should quit complaining. If I cast this, I'm going to do the same cast here. So I'm curious as if I was making the wrong type in the first place. Now, build. We're going to clean up. This needs a lot of cleanup. This is just a debug session to see if it's going to work or not. And let's run. And hopefully I was just building the wrong type of object by not passing in the actual generic parameter. All right, so the real tricker is this should be, is generic type is false. What does it say the type is? In general, vault unseal command, full name. All right, so let's inspect this type. Locals. There's got to give us the information that we need. Type. Contains generic. Yeah, let's expand this. Contains generic parameters, false. So what is the type? Full name, Tangram's command vault unseal command. That's this guy right here. Now he inherits this type. Oh, this is the interface. He himself is not generic. That's right. He's not generic. But we're going to have implemented interfaces down here. And that's going to tell us what we want. Right, so this is going to say I implement iRequest, iBase request, iRequest, and the iRequest generic. Yep, I request generic, and then this one is going to say generic type arguments. Oh, that's the generic type. That has the mediator R unit. That's not the one. Right? That's not the one. Oh, it's the 0 one, highest level. Now let's look at the generic type arguments on that. And that should be the response. Okay. So that tells us where we're at. So this is not looking at the right spot. Good Lord, I don't have a clue how to, I shouldn't say I don't have a clue, but it's not I've done this before. It's not coming back to me right off the top of my head of how to cast that to a generic type, right? So it's like I don't know. I want to cast up here. This needs to be I request of whatever. So when I create activator.create instance, this type here is what? Yeah, confusing. Confusing. So, not exactly sure. Not exactly sure. Would like to get, man, that just went live thing sure takes a long time to actually show up. I went live 30 minutes ago. I just now get the email that's saying the freeze team went live. Yeah, that's slow. How do we do it? How do I do it? If I had anybody on watching, could help me out here. Who do I have? Do I have one viewer or not? Let's click on live and let's see what we've got. I think it'll tell me on UBS. Not exactly sure. You'd think the thing tells you one viewer. It's probably myself, right? Probably. TheFreezeTeam.com, Twitch, the Freeze Team. Go there. Pull that over here. And that'll give me the chat. And you can go to all right, so somebody 0_apple bad apple _0 it claims is in the room. But obviously not talking to me, most likely a bot. That's okay. All right, so how do I create the instance of the type so that when it sends it through mediator, it thinks it is I request of whatever that response type is? I have no clue, to be honest with you. I don't know at this point. So in order for us to make progress, we can go back to where we were when we ended the last session and just ignore this, right? So that makes my handler down here became this guy. So I commented that out because this is the one that I really want, right? And as opposed to this one, which it will find. Let's see, how do you instantiate, how to cast? Let's do a quick Google search. C# activator create instance cast to generic. How to use activator to create an instance of a generic type. That's not exactly what I'm doing, though, I don't think. Since the actual type T is available to you only through reflection, you would need to access methods of store of T through reflection as well. Yeah, we figure we're going to do everything in reflection. Constructed type, new object, some parameter, var method equals constructed type dot get method, my method taking T, iStore interface does not use generics and uses iStorable instead. Store where T iStorable, class beer iStorable, class this, type store type, some object that implements iStorable.get type. Alternate, I try this. Could possibly work in my opinion, but gives an invalid cast exception. How do I get access again to store of T method that I know are in object X? So we know we implement iRequest. What did he go back? Let me go back to that one more time real quick, and then we're gonna drop this line. I could do this offline. You guys don't have to watch me torture myself. So that's the generic one. How's he trying to do it here? Method.invoke X, new object, some object that implements storable. Activator.create instance of constructed type. So then he's trying to method constructed type get method. So that would be like trying to find the daggone method that took this type. So that would be like trying to go with mediator. Yuck. Type of store of T, new object this as store of T. You can't do it this way. That's not the answer we want to hear. Okay, so you can do it this way, by the way. I'm just not exactly sure how at this point. All right, so I want to get that to be generic because I want to be able to return a result on the website, but for the console app, I don't have to have it as generic. Right, so this method is going to work here. Just comment out this for now. And that will create the request method again, and then we go back to our command, and well, that's already implementing iRequest, so we have to go to the handler and change this guy. iRequest handler, and what do we put here? We don't have a response. We just do this. I think is the way that would register. What's it complaining about? Oh, we broke it for run one. All right, what's it complaining about? Oh, it doesn't implement the request. That's because that's implemented down here. Now we would implement the request. I guess leaving this one in doesn't hurt anything, just not going to ever fire. Be able to return a result. This one should work. All right, so let's see. So this would be basically back where we ended off the last episode. If we compile and run, I think all we're going to do is print out the key and then say, hey, we should actually unseal the vault. All right, running. Rule that should validate. And we get the to-do actually unseal the vault, print the key. So that does work. So we're back to where we were. Now, so what do I want to do today? Let's see. Do I want to implement another Tangram command, or do I want to actually, just define another Tangram command, which would be vault unseal and then whatever the rest of them are? Or do we want to try to implement one? I think vault unseal is the very first thing we have to do. Otherwise, you can't get to anything. That is using a third-party HashiCorp vault, I believe, is what that's using. Let's go look at the source code for the cipher itself. We open that up here, Control C, oh no, exit, right? You can type exit in there, loop. All right, okay. Let's open that up again, right there, in another tab. Okay. And that should be in here. Should have a solution file there somewhere, cipher.sln. Okay, fire that up and let's take a look. So it's got a lot of stuff. I wonder what that vault actually does. What does it actually do? Actually, it would be interesting too to run Cipher from the debugger. I don't think I've done that yet. It's coming. Let's see, where is it? And I did an update. I think this fork, yeah, I did. The fork is up to date. Let's go take a look. Double check, for sanity's sake. Gmaster. Pull this guy up. Cipher fork. Right here says upstream master, and that looks like the last one was committed, and they're probably working on this transaction wallet recoveries. But nonetheless, we're up to date. Now, look, all this stuff that's in here, inside this guy. Which part does the unseal use? So if we run this from inside the debugger, Cipher set to run, we should end up in that event loop. Inside this console app, just like we would on the outside. Let's see, are we in the main? Okay, step through this. What is it doing here? Let's see, it's just running a whole bunch of configuration for the host builder. Oh, that's right. We've got to actually we end up building a web server, I think, behind the scenes as well. Let it run. Start all host providers. Okay, so it spit out some information there. Listener 1, whatever. Mlock supported, okay. Vault is currently sealed. Please type vault unseal to begin unsealing the vault. So that's the command that we want to run. That's the one that we modeled. I want to figure out what the dependencies are. Can I even pull those things out? I'm literally doing this blind, so. All right, unseal. Surely somewhere in the code. Unseal, that's what I'm looking for. There's the unseal command. That's right, vault unseal command. Let's see, override execute. So he's going to do this. Right? Now, let's see if I get that breakpoint or not. Vault unseal. And I do. So that's good. That's where I wanted to be. Okay, using vault. The new C# syntax, by the way, we don't have to use the brackets around our using, and they'll automatically free when no longer needed. If we're on C# 8, which I don't believe this app is. All right, so now what we're going to do, var vault shard. That's not what we care about. What we care about is this vault service client unseal is what actually does the work. This loop right here, this is just doing all of their command prompting, which we don't need on ours because we're using the outside command line arguments to provide those. So he's going to say vault key, and I need to pass in one of those vault keys that I have somewhere, like that. And what is it? This thing, edit paste or something. And let's hope it worked. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, who knows. Vault shard. Length is 0. That's not good then, is it? Okay, continue. Gives us an exception there of a bad request passed to somebody. So that doesn't look like it gets validated. Well, we're looking at it. It doesn't get validated. It just says prompt. I don't know. Get password as secure string. No validation here, so we can do better, and ours will do the validation and tell them, hey, we need this 66 character long thing. So that would help. But for now, let's run that again. Say go, and I actually want to be able to paste in that key. Double click, puts it in the keyboard, or in the clipboard. Come over here and say edit. Oh, it's got something highlighted. That's interesting. Where did it go? Crashed, I guess. Didn't like me messing around with it. All right, run that again. Let's see if we could paste in this guy. That service is what we need to move, and let's see if we can pull those dependencies in and actually unseal the vault from that command. That would be enough for today. Be nice. Give us some sort of confidence. There's an interactive CLI loop. That's the prompting for stuff that's going on in there. So vault unseal and continue. And he wants that key, which we have in memory, and we say edit, paste. There, looks like it actually put it in. Server return status code, bad request. All right, that's fine. Well, it's not fine, but for what we wanted to accomplish. But I want to go into this guy, vault service unseal. What is it? Control F12 takes me into the implementation and not the definition, which is what I want. So I want here. let's take a look at this guy. What class is this? Vault service. It's a vault service client. It implements an iVault service client. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so what's he doing here? Service token file. Not sure. Get service token async. Vault service client. Where's the constructor on this thing? There. And what does it take? It takes the iConsole. Is that what that is? Let's see, that should be in system, right? Oh no, this is their iConsole. Let's see, I don't know if that even exists. iConfiguration. Just pass in configuration some logger. So there's their constructor. They do that, do that, do that. There's the unseal. Using the shard dot insecure. What's that? An extension method? Yeah, it says it extension. All right, so insecure that, and then if s is null, blah blah blah. Throw argument exception. See, it checks right there for null. This could be done with a guard clause, which you guys use somewhere. Use guard clauses. Actually, use that library that I learned last week. That's super nice, by the way. Then we go and say put JSON async out to this, thing. All right, so we're going to send JSON async seal status. Must be what we're getting back. Put this and expect this back. So the var response is going to be seal status. Yep. And then you come back and say console.reset foreground color vault unsealed if it succeeded, and then return that. Okay, so the real trick though is where is this thing is running. This vault service is running as a web service, right? Yeah, so how do they do that? Where's that guy getting kicked off? Right, so we've created a web service. It's got to be on that startup piece. That too is going to take a minute to figure out. So where's my best chance here? Maybe I just build the next command today and then play with this a little later. All right, so sealed, skip print. All right, this should work though. Why is it not running? It gives me a failure. Now it's still running over here. Let's see if I run the command again. Let that go. It's going to ask me for the key, which I should still be able to paste. Looks good. Now it's going to show up in here. Okay, so we're going to go say, give me this shard. So this is system security secure string. That's what that is. There's this length 66. All right, so we can't see the contents of it. Where did it get put in as a secure string? Maybe that get prompt. Maybe the get prompt put it in as a secure string because I would have thought it was just a string. All right, so this is nice because basically it's never itself after the original in memory. It's not. Well, let's see, what the heck does Microsoft tell you what secure string is? I thought I could see the docs on it too. From here, nope, I guess not. So you'd have to go look it up, which is a good idea. And we've got secured strings, C# secured string. Secure string class from Microsoft. Let me bring that over here. represents text that should be kept confidential, such as by deleting it from a computer memory when no longer needed. This class cannot be inherited. Example, secure string, secure password equals new secure string, console.key. So read key, and here's a secure password. So they keep adding it to this thing. And secure password gets disposed right there. We don't recommend that you use a secure string class for new development. Huh? We don't recommend that you use a secure string class for new development. For more information, see secure string shouldn't be used on GitHub. Secure string is a string that provides a measure of security. It tries to avoid storing potentially sensitive strings in process memory as plain text, which is probably why they're using it here. See the how secure is secure string section. The value of an instance of secure string is automatically protected using a mechanism supported by the underlying platform when the instance is initialized or when the value is modified. Your application can render the instance immutable and prevent further modification by invoking the make read only method. Maximum length of secure string is 65 or 64K. Okay, so if it's saying don't use it for new development, what do I use? And why not? For the in-memory pieces, that should still work, right? Don't recommend secure string should not be used. For more information, see secure string should not be used on GitHub. All right, let's go look. I want to see why. The purpose of secure string is to avoid having secrets stored in the processed memory as plain text. However, even on Windows, secure string doesn't exist as an OS concept. It just makes the window getting the plain text shorter. It doesn't fully prevent it, as .NET still has to convert the string to plain text representation. The benefit is that the plain text representation doesn't hang around as an instance of system.string. The lifetime of the native buffer is shorter. Okay, so right, the contents of the array is unencrypted except on .NET Framework. In .NET Framework, the contents of the internal character array is encrypted. .NET doesn't support encryption in all environments, either due to missing APIs or key management issues. Don't use secure string for new code. When porting code to .NET Core, consider the contents of the array as not encrypted in memory. The general approach of dealing with credentials is to avoid them and instead rely on other means to authenticate, such as certificates or Windows authentication. Well, yeah, but that's not what we're doing here. So I don't understand exactly that. And for what the purpose of the secure string, I don't see why this is a problem. But anyway, so all he's got is your secure string there. Checks if it's null and then pushes it out to put as JSON async does what? Okay. This is also in that Vault Services thing. New base URI. Right. Okay, so one thing gives me pause here a little bit is that there's a dependency. I have a dependency on this thing that's not actually explicitly defined in my dependencies, is it? Vault token, create response auth, get service token. All I have is a configuration, which I don't know what's in that, a logger, and some terrible variable names, which they rename right here. Why didn't you just rename them there? And you would have to rename them. And then Is that a class method? It's a private class method, lowercase. Okay, I can see it. Don't. All right, so vault underscore section equals configuration that gets section. Vault endpoints equal to the vault underscore section get value. So that's trying to pull the configuration. That's using the configuration to get that information. And vault client settings are there. All right, so let's see. Vault client settings. I might pull that out a little bit further. Where's that vault client settings? Let's find that first. New vault client settings. Endpoint, new user pass. New vault client settings. Vault client settings. These non-local variables that look like local variables to me make it a little bit confusing. This is a local, but didn't I just have that name a minute ago in the class? All right, post JSON async is what we call. So it gets the base URI, var URI, and he's going to new up an HTTP client. All right, so I don't do it this way. If I need an HTTP client, I'm going to create a class for whatever this thing is, the HTTP client. And then when it gets constructed, it's going to build itself. This stuff here is going to be built inside the HTTP client for that guy, a specific one. And then I'm going to take a dependency on that HTTP client, so I don't have to configure it here. All right, but that's when we rewrite over there, we can do that, but now we don't care. All right, so what happens in this post JSON async is he just calls this guy, but where did that guy actually get started? So you can't call a server that doesn't exist. Stop. It's got to be on that original startup with all that host builder. Add this guy, add that guy. There's some singleton, fire up this web server, I'm guessing. So see, here's the builder. Add command line, add options, add singleton. So that thing exists out there. Got to be running someplace, right? Or maybe it's not running. That's why it fails. Okay, so here's a HTTPXY. What's my call stack? What's going on in this at this point in time? Run. That's what's going on. And then this guy is just getting set up. Start all hosted providers. This is the interactive. So there, start all hosted providers. Find all hosted server types, service types for each var host provider in host providers. Service instance equals service provider.get service hosted provider as I hosting service. And then start async. Okay, put a breakpoint here. I'm just trying to figure out where in the world did that service provider get registered for the Vault, which I think is like a HashiCorp app that got installed on this at some point. Hosted providers. Let's see, what do you have in there? Well, enumerate the enumerable. Yeah, but will it work or not? answered that question. All right, so there's a hosted provider. Okay, so what are the hosted providers? Onion service is one. And then you tell it to start if it doesn't exist. Okay. Whoa. How do we get back out? Should we have been in this loop here somewhere? I wanted to see what the next hosted provider was. Kill it. So I just want to figure out how the vault runs. How do I start the vault? So rebuilding an app that you know nothing about is a good way to figure out what is it doing. All right, so we're going to go here again. That thing hits. Now we're in this interactive CLI loop, so things are all going to be started up. I think it should be inside of this guy. All right, we get one here. So the hosted provider there is the iOnion service. Okay, so that's the only one. That's the only one. And that can't be how that works, right? See, I get a message that says Vault server started on the console app. Where did this come from? So is that from somebody outside that gets fired up? That gets fired up someplace. Control Shift Find. Let's just look for Vault server started and see if it shows up in our code somewhere. There, console.writeline. Start Vault process. That's what I want. And where the heck is that thing? Okay, Vault service is here. Start Vault process. All right, now let's see. Is that done inside the constructor? Restart Vault process. Vault service is a hosted service. iVault service, then iDisposable. And the constructor does what? Vault service, configuration, the console, and the logger. Okay, and Vault section. We go pull out that stuff and okay, so it's looking at the configuration file. So that's going to be in the app settings. Well, normally in the app settings. Where the heck are the app settings? There was app settings. All right, and here's the vault. All right, so that tells it where to go do this thing, but then that's going to tell this guy where to start, I guess. So vault service is here. So let's put a breakpoint on that. But notice it's just configuring it. Get children, vault client settings, going to do vault client settings. I don't know what this children's used for. It's not. So this line looks like it's unused, could be removed. Looks like. Is this a field? Yeah, so I don't know what that children is not used. The compiler doesn't think it's used either, so. Vault client settings, you do that. So that's the vault client settings that you keep around. Now, let's see what we have here as far as class names go. Vault service, that's our constructor. Executable name, calculate expected, calculate vault, blah, blah, blah. Start vault service, right? So that's got to be somebody's got to tell him to start. It's going to be one of these references. I just want to see who it is. Vault service, line 658. So override async task execute async. Vault execute async, debug write line. Try await task run. Async of this guy, start this guy up. And then catch exception util.log exception. Console logger error. So why catch and just log? So if it fails to start, right, we would get a log thing on it, but we wouldn't, the user wouldn't know, right? So I question this. Maybe log exception throws again, which wouldn't make any sense. And it doesn't. What did it do? In this case, console, the user would know because he's console logging it. Okay. I guess we can live with that. I guess. All right, so this gets run by what? Oh, so when we started that onion service, does it execute this? For references, override execute async. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We just stop it, and then we're going to run, and then we can see what the call stack looks like. Okay, so that's another interesting point. So when he's in his CLI loop, he's starting up a whole other web server that's sitting out there. He starts up this Vault web server that sits there. Waiting for you to send it commands. And if you don't have the CLI loop, then that means you'd have to start that up first, or start it up every time, or check to see if it's not running. But more importantly, or not more importantly, but the other side of that is how do you kill it? How do you tell it to stop? Right? How do you stop the Vault service from running out there? Okay, so here we are. We're in main. It's telling me to run the console. My guess is, since this Vault is firing up, this is a constructor. Somebody has a dependency on this thing. They're trying to provide it. Okay, so now we're going to say execute async. Who calls that? Start async. Application layer. That's what we're calling this. Let's collapse this. Where's this file? Hosted service. Okay. So any hosted service, which is just saying, hey, go start up all these things. All right, store this task we're executing. If this task is completed, then return it. This will bubble cancellation and failure to the caller. Okay. So then he's going to go out here and he's going to call start the Vault service. And when he does that, ensure Vault executable present. All right, that's what we want to see. Ensure Vault executable present. We're going to step into that if it lets us. Give me a breakpoint in here. If Vault executable does not equal null, unable to find Vault executable. If Vault executable does not equal null, well, how the heck did it get populated in the first place? F12. the getter goes out and gets it. It says Tangram get files vault executable name search option top directory only. If file does not equal null, get files vault executable name. So in the Tangram directory, don't know exactly what that's set to either yet. All right, vault executable name, which is going to be a constant someplace. So it's either going to return vault or vault.exe. On Windows, it's a vault.exe, and outside of Windows, it's just vault. Okay. Now the question is, where is this vault.exe? Where is the vault.exe? Let's look at the folder view for a second. Will it let you switch to folder view while it's running? Yes, okay. All right, so helper, don't see it. Actor commands, properties. Did it download it someplace if it doesn't exist? I want to say yes. Okay, so ls change directory to the binder, release, net, core app. And there's your vault. There's your vault.exe. Okay, so let's do this. Invoke item, current directory, open this up in Explorer. Let's look at this vault. Properties. Details, application, nothing. I was looking at who the heck makes this thing. This is the HashiCorp vault, right? Nothing like bearing your soul on the whole world to watch. Vault by HashiCorp, which says managing secrets and protective sensitive data. Now we have to have a key to open the vault, and the vault has stuff on the inside. Secure, store, and tightly control access to tokens, passwords, certificates, encryption keys for protecting secrets and other sensitive data using a UI, CLI, and HTTP API. Okay, so vault use cases, secret management, data protection, vault documentation. So it's an interesting, we can use somebody else's thing on the outside, which actually makes sense. Don't reinvent the wheel. Centrally store access and distribute dynamic secrets such as tokens, vault passwords, certificates, and encryption keys. Keep application data secure with centralized key management and simple APIs. Question to me is, where? All right, so this vault runs. Let's just go there and run that command. What's in there? What if I just type vault? Read, write, delete, list, log in, agent, server, status, unwrap. Okay, so what's start vault server? So that must be what it does, right? So we're basically launching a process that starts the vault server so that we can talk to it from there on through the API. Right? Yeah, I guess so. Now, let's see, do they have any samples for this. Installing Vault command CLI. Managing vaults via its command line CLI. Okay. All right, so I think that's all that's happening. Execute async. He's going to continue to run. Switch back to folder view. Okay, so now we're stuck in this execute async. I don't know what this is doing. Okay, different spot. We got some async stuff going on, so we're hopping all over the place. Applications in break mode. Exception unhandled. Could not load file or assembly system.runtime. One of its dependencies is going to find a file. Probably screwed it up. Okay, so here's start vault process, which is going to do what? Tangram, cipher fork, bit, bin, debug, netcore app22, that's the working directory. And we're just going to launch a process. Oh, and you're going to pass, instead of passing arguments, it has the ability to take a config file through the vault.json, which we saw right here. And that set up these particular things in it. Okay, fine. Fault.output data received async sender. Okay, so what are we trying to do here? Start info redirect standard out equals standard output equals true. And then that's going to say, give me this output. So he's adding a method that says when I get some output, do something with it. Logger log information console.write edata. If e not null and edata equals null, fault server started, then console reset color, console fault server right line, console server started, logger information, log information started. Okay, so these are inside the callback of this thing. Let's let it run and see what happens. Okay, so now he's inside this guy. Data received event is what that E is. I have to say I don't like the variable name. If it's a data received event args, at least give an event, right? Event data, value server, vault server configuration. It must not have had vault server started. So okay, we're reading console output from the thing and failing, right? Never seems to hit. What's triggering it to keep going? I don't know. We're in an async thing someplace. Call stack's not telling me much, but never seems to. Oh, now finally it says okay, vault server started. So it's just someplace on the outside it's looping through. On data received. Oh, every time it gets something, it's calling this method. And now that you're done with that, then you can go in and say initialize, right? Right, so now it's saying, okay, checking vault init status, var vc equals new vault client settings, get init status async. Gonna be back in this loop. Okay, please type vault. So vault is currently sealed. Whew, makes my head hurt. Vault server started. Log data will stream in below. Vault server started. So we get that information out of that thing. So that seems like a lot. All right, let's kill it for now. And let's see. I don't see from the commands that it shows. I don't see where it says you could take a config. Vault server minus help. Didn't like that. Command vault. All right, I'm thinking. Not sure. Not sure. Thinking about this vault service. Where are we going to kick that bad boy off? And why can't I? Why is he? Well, he's doing it in that CLI loop. If I did it from the outside, could I validate that it was running? When I typed vault server, it won't start. Must specify at least one config path using -config. Okay, so that's good. So -service -help. Holy cow, there we go. All right, so here's -config, start the server. All right, so ls again, let's do vault. Let's do this vault thing. Server -config vault.json. All right, so that launches the process. So if we've said, if that guy's open, what other commands do I have? Let's go into this guy. We've sucked up this tab. cd, oops, cd, Okay, now if I type vault.exe again, now vault.exe status, what does that do? Error checking seal status, get this, HTTP response to HTTPS client. What the heck? Get HTTPS 1270v1/seal status. HTTP server gave HTTP response to HTTPS client. All right, let's go there to that spot. I guess I'm just trying to figure out what HashiCorp's vault does at this point. So that and this. Server started. Logging will do this. 1227. Oh, I wanted you docked over here. And it says 8201. Right? Well, that kind of stinks with all that crap there. You can't see the address bar. There we go. V1 sys seal status. And hit enter and it says this site can't provide a secure connection. Okay. This site can't provide a secure connection. But HTTP works. Initialized. Okay, so that just gets you back the information from that thing. Okay, so that's not too terrible. All right, now what do I do with it? What do you do with it? Okay, but ironically, this wants to go to the HTTPS. Oh, so why do we start it? All right, ls. I'm gonna go look at the config, the JSON on that. Oh, I wanted a cat vault.json, and it says TLS disable equals true. So the service is started up inside the CLI loop, but it's still available process. It's going to be running. I could hit this same thing even if I didn't start it, because there's nothing saying it's not. So it's just listening on my local machine. TLS disable is setting that to true, so it's saying that, hey, I'm not going to use config or an HTTPS. So the command line, I guess, based on the result of that command, says, you need to be using HTTPS. How do you stop the server? That's another question. If vault server starts the server, oh, it sucked up the process. It didn't end, right? So you have to just terminate right here. And is it listening to anything, or is it just going to be a Control C? Vault shutdown triggered. Okay, so we just killed the process there. Now refresh over here. Should say nobody's listening, correct? And go all the way back to Tangram here. And when that thing fires up, vault's currently sealed, but it's listening. And it's listening on HTTP as well. Curious as to why you disable HTTPS. Why do you care? Why not leave that on in here too? Right? Because in theory, yeah, it'd be a really tough theory. Really tough theory to put a man in the middle on your local host, but I guess in theory it's possible. But why turn it off? Okay, so exit. I'm gonna go see, just for fun. Just for fun. II dot, and it's 2:30. We're gonna quit about 2:50. II dot, where did it go? That should pull open a console window someplace. but doesn't seem to have done such. There we go. And we've got vault.json. And if I open that, it should open it in VS Code. I was going to ask, okay, it's fine. VS Code, and let's set that to false. TLS, I forget what TLS stands for, honestly, but it's security protocol, encryption. The heck does TLS stand for? All right, so if I put this to TLS disable to false, then I'm guessing that when I start that server, it will run in HTTPS mode. Nope, it's going to say, where's the certification file? Where's the file for this thing? All right, and thus the reason why they turn it off, because like, why do I care about a certificate? Right? And if you're running on localhost, is it secure or not secure? Is that a security vulnerability or not? I have to do a little research and look for, can I intercept or man in the middle on localhost, right? Also, if that's the way they expect this thing to run, then because it should run with the certificate file, then my guess is they give you some directions on how to create one of these. And maybe they're expecting this thing to run, maybe expecting it to run on a server only, and so you would have a certificate file on the client. If you're running it the way this is, maybe that's not its normal use case. I have no idea. I have no idea. So in order for us to get this to run in our console app, we have to figure out how to move this service over there like they've done. And I don't want it inside of a loop. If I take a dependency on it, who starts it? When does it start? When do you start it? Would it make sense to say, hey, when you run the command, say, vault's not started. Run this first, right, to start the vault, and then just run it outside. We're trying to make the user story simpler. Now, if you move this vault capability inside a browser, how in the heck is that going to work? I don't think it is. So I can't launch a server inside a WebAssembly browser to have that vault running. I could if it's running on the outside, fine. Yeah, that's going to take me a little bit more time to figure out how that works. So we also have some other things, Tor, the Onion service, and all these other things that are outside running as well. But this vault thing is interesting. Vault agent, configure the vault binary as a client. I'm reading the documentation over here. Installing vault, internals, configuration, commands, secret engines. And still I'm concerned, where does it store this stuff? So you saw that vault directory, right? So is there a database for it? Here's your vault JSON. Where is it storing this? I don't know. I think we're going to have a meeting with the developer again to go through a little bit more and answer some more of my questions. They're extremely helpful, so I'm sure it won't be a problem. But I'm a little confused as to how we're using the vault, and can I take it out of this particular loop. What am I getting out of the vault after I've opened it? I'm storing some key in it, something secret inside there. So I'm going to need a little bit of help to determine how that works. Yep, so we could go through and do another command, map another command, but I'd rather play with this vault a little bit more. I think I'm going to read the HashiCorp, which is right here. Let's see, this is the blog, vaultproject.io. Goes there. This is where this thing works. Manage secrets and protect sensitive data. Keep application data secure with centralized, see that's a centralized key management and simple APIs for data encryption. I'm confused. What is stored in the vault and where is it stored? Let's see if we can't just go straight to Discord and get some, whoops, let's see here. We don't want to be over there. You guys don't need to see all my Discord people. I'm going to go to Tangram. Actually, I'm just going to go straight to Ping Pong and see if he's listening. Doing some more cipher. Live on Twitch as I type. Have some questions regarding HashiCorp Vault. What is stored in the vault? And where is, given this is running on localhost, where is this data stored? And Ping Pong is in true form, typing a response right now. I don't know what he's thinking, but let's see. So, I mean, we're running this thing locally, and it's talking about a centralized thing. So I would thought it would be running on a server, and then everybody would talk to it through this API. If that's the case, why wouldn't we throw it on the cloud and just talk to it out there? I'm assuming because we want to try to make it a little bit more secure and basically don't put this, whatever we're storing in there, on the cloud. You want to keep it local, so it's a little bit, attack vector is smaller, I guess. But I'm guessing. Ping Pong's playing ping pong maybe. Nope, he's typing, so we're going to see what response we get. And he stops typing. So we know we could run this thing locally, right? And we can talk to it. It's just over HTTP. So if we're running a web wallet, right? We're going to put this in a browser. So then we could run this HashiCorp Vault on the server the same way, right? So I don't see, so I could eliminate the need from having this vault in my client, but I need to unseal it, right? Which is those keys that they give us in the beginning are the keys to the vault. Yeah, I'm not sure. I need to have a talk with Ping Pong to see what's going on there. Again, he's typing. So I say we're going to wrap this up. It's 2:40. It's been an hour and 40 minutes. So we didn't cover too much. We really just did more investigation of how is this vault being integrated into Tangram's wallet, and I want to extract it out if I can to make it to make that dependency a little bit clearer for me anyway, or at least figure out what it is. But let's just say that's good for today, and then Ping Pong will get us some information, and then next week I should have a little bit better insights and maybe even have it already extracted out so you don't have to watch the boring piece, and then I can just give you an overview as opposed to letting you see me struggle. All right, we're going to call it. Thanks.